Can you save this sourdough starter that has been sitting in your refrigerator for months and months being neglected and not fed? The answer is yes, maybe. You could have a beautiful sourdough starter like this if everything works out just right. Hello and welcome to Jackson's Job. Today we are going to try to revive my sourdough starter that has been neglected in the back of my refrigerator for over 6 months. And say hello to Roxanne, everyone. The first thing we're going to do is look at this closely and look for any signs of mold. Blue, black, especially red. You see red, you have to throw this out. Tilting the container toward you and slowly rotating it and looking very carefully for any signs of growth. If you see any mold, do not chance it. Throw it out, start it over. The liquid on top is perfectly fine and is actually a very good thing because it has created a barrier for bad bacteria to not want to harbor into this starter. So if you see liquid, this is a good sign usually. The liquid on top of this sourdough starter is called hooch, but I do not recommend drinking this whatsoever because it is quite disgusting. Now I'm going to take my old sourdough starter, I'm going to leave that liquid on top and I'm going to give it a nice stir together. And then I'm going to use whatever is on my spoon and let it drizzle into the container that I plan to transfer it into. You don't need a lot of this. A few grams is all you need, maybe about like 1/8 of a teaspoon if you want to measure it out. Now that you have that little bit measured out, look at it closely again and make sure you don't see any mold. If you don't see any mold, you're good to go to the next step. You're going to add in 1/4 cup of water, that is 60 milliliters. Next, you're going to add in 1/3 cup of flour, that is 50 grams. You can use all-purpose, whole wheat, any type of flour you like. Now just give this a nice stir until it comes together. It should be pretty loose when you turn it to the side. You should see it start to move around, a lot like melting ice cream. Now what you want to do is cover this loosely with some plastic. I like to use a baggie and then just kind of like pinch it a little bit and also let some air get into it, and I let it sit for 6 to 12 hours or until it about doubles in size. If all goes well, you will see some bubbles and some life starting. Say hi to Maggie and Roxanne. This is very early in the morning and they are ready to start their day. At this stage, you want to look it all over very, very carefully. Check for any mold. Again, blue, black, orange, red, toss it. Do not chance this, even though other people will tell you it's fine. I'm never going to tell you it's fine. Next, let it sit again until it collapses completely and you start to see some liquid form on top. Now the liquid may or may not happen. That is perfectly fine. What you want to do is once again rotate it and look for mold once more. So now that we know our sourdough starter is healthy and it is showing signs of life, we're going to feed it again. This time I'm going to thicken up that batter somewhat. If you do not have a scale, I'm going to give you the cup measurements. You will need 1/2 cup of flour, that's 75 grams. To that, I'm adding 1/3 cup of water, that's 80 milliliters. Now if you use scales, I recommend doing 75 grams of flour and 75 milliliters or grams of water. Then you're going to take a little bit of that sourdough starter off of a spoon and drizzle it in. Again, it's going to be just a few grams. Stir this until there's no more flour and it's a nice thick paste. If it's a little bit thicker or a little bit thinner, especially if you're using cup measurements, that's okay. You just want it to be a pretty thick paste. If you didn't stir this into your jar, you want to transfer this into your jar and scrape down the sides or wipe them down with a clean, dry cloth. You don't necessarily have to do the cleaning down the sides, but whenever I revive a sourdough starter, I like to try to be as clean as possible. That way I'm not introducing any more pathogens into the mixture. Once again, you want to cover this and let it sit until it starts to double in size and gets nice and bubbly. If all goes well, it's going to be nice and bubbly and full of life and ready to restart your sourdough adventures. I truly hope that this tutorial was helpful for you. And as always, happy baking!